What's good, YouTube? Cardfight King here, Aqua Life, baby. You already know, Washington Redskins all day, every day. I'm here to bring you guys my tournament report for tonight's locals. We had it was about, smaller pair of locals. Obviously, some new locals, but had 3 rounds tonight. I played my only standard deck, as you guys saw in the mail day video. Spike Brothers. I love the deck. I've had just a boatload of fun with it. I really love how the deck works, how it puts, you're able to filter triggers back into your deck. You're able to, call things down consistently, make different power columns, but it also has a really unique strategy in terms of how you want to plan out your attack patterns. Basically kind of like what play do you want to run at, this time and things like that. Like Save Free being able to hit a rear guard, restand one of your rear guards and pop one of theirs, and then you get 2 more attacks on 2 more high-powered attacks on Vanguard. Save Free, he rarely hits. The opponent loves to toss out like perfect guards or a heavy amount of shielding for him. So definitely, he's definitely a really nice pressure card. That's why I generally put my force markers on the rear guard circle, even though I'm still trying to experiment with putting my force markers on the Vanguard circle, but I'm more comfortable with just doing it on rear guards because, especially against like Protect Clans, he doesn't hit at all. And since he rarely will ever hit in a way, I rather just make sure that my rear guard columns are pretty huge, and they're gonna keep swinging, and we're gonna, Save Free's just there. He's kind of like the quarterback. I want you guys to I'll shine in my own way just from being pressure, but I'm gonna use my force markers. I'm gonna put you guys on, and I'm gonna make sure you guys do what you need, do what you need to do so that you guys can get in. I'm just here to pass the force markers, pass the ball off, pass the triggers off to you guys. You guys do what you need to do. Y'all the playmakers. So definitely really enjoy what Save Free brings to the deck. And if you want to know why I'm in wrestling gear, because today is basically the first season of preseason football. Football is back. You already know. I'm excited. So let's get into the tournament report. So for the tournament report, Round one, I played against my little brother, who is, obviously you guys know he's a dragon player, he's a Kagura player, he plays Kagura. Game 1, I obliterate him in, I was just really working with my plays, even if, his retiring, I was definitely playing around. His retiring, wasn't committing too early heavily, but then when I did have to commit, I made some really nice pushes. I was also reducing his field with Save Free. He had to let Save Free hit a few times, so I was definitely reducing his field in that category, and then getting just powerful attacks off from my rear guards. So it definitely worked there. Game 2 and 3 kind of went the same way. Like, he sacked me into oblivion. Like all those games, I generally felt as if I had the advantage. I was pushing his damage high. I hit a crit. I was getting Save Free's ability off with the reset and stuff. But he hit like a double heal on Overlord, and then hit like a heal at 3. So he stayed at 3. And then hit a draw and crit when he rode into Waterfall, or he would check like a double crit or something. Like Game 3, it was just again, I was pushing him, I was doing good, but then he healed out of the damage. He hit like double draw, and then he was able to hit like a draw and a crit on a Waterfall turn. While I was at 3. And he broke my 2 to pass, because that's all I could afford. So yeah, really, I felt, I was in control both of those games, but he just hit those really key triggers to reduce the amount of damage that I've already, basically alleviate himself of the damage that I was able to place upon him, and then, he was able to come back like with his 1 waterfall in hand, because he really wasn't seeing his waterfalls. He saw 1 waterfall in hand, but then, it was like, all right, I'm gonna slap down Waterfall and see what I get. And, he was able to check a crit game 2, and then game 3 checked a draw and a crit. So not much I can do with that. Round 2 played against Oracle Think Tank. I won that matchup 2-1. Basically the game that I lost, which was game 2, was just purely due to just he hit a lot of his draw perfect guards, and so he was able to block a lot of my stuff. I don't think Seyfried went off that game at all, because he understood what Seyfried did from game 1, with his restand ability, and he kept a lot of his PGs in hand and protect markers, and then hit me with Deer for game. I had to no guard Deer. I had to no guard his Deer turn at 3, and he did put 2 crits on top of the deck, so wasn't really good from there. But then game 1 and game 3 kind of went the same. I just kind of pressured him. I was making making different plays, swinging at his rear guards, reducing his board, and just putting on some pressure. I kind of pressured him a little bit early. Kind of overcommitted just a little bit, because I was like, I'm not trying to sit here and play the advantage game, and so it caused him to not attack my Vanguard, attack my rear guards, but I was able to have some backup rear guards in hand, like my boy Panther. Panther came in real handy. Panther wins games, so Panther came in and did what he needed to do. So yeah, I was able to get that win. And then round three, I actually had a mirror match. Game 1, I drew Seyfried and called him the board, or called him Vanguard Circle, and I just kind of ran the tables right there. Was able to, and this was against a mirror. Was able to hit his rear guard, get Seyfried's ability off, really pressurize with Juggernaut and Bracky. Like when both of them on the board. Sometimes Panther obviously came in the clutch too. But really just how it was working, with my attack patterns and whatnot. Really, I believe that kind of threw him off in terms of where he valued his guarding at and things of that nature. But then games 2 and game 3, I honestly couldn't play too much. He rode Seyfried game 2. I had to ride Juggernaut. I was stuck on Juggernaut for the entire game. No matter if and I had 3 Gary Gannons hit. He let 3 Gary Gannons hit, and I still couldn't draw into a Seyfried. I used Wonder Boy to filter. I filtered with Bracky, and all 4 copies of my Juggernaut were actually out of the deck. I damaged 2, and I drew 2 when I first wrote my first grade 3. I had a second one in hand. But I filtered with Wonder Boy, filtered with Bracky. I still couldn't see Seyfried. All 4 copies of Seyfried were just in the deck the entire game. So it just really it just really didn't work out well. And he was on Seyfried, so because he was on Seyfried, he was definitely able to provide a lot, more pressure, more push, just being able to use his ability to get in there. His attacks on rear guards, I could only block but so much, and I had to let his ability pop off a few times. So it was just ugly. Then game 3 we don't even need to speak on. Game 3, I was great stuck at 2, and I failed G assist twice. Not happy about that at all. I really just couldn't play the game at all. I didn't draw into a Seyfried until literally my last turn. I drove check a Seyfried, and I was like, well, I drove check a Seyfried, Gary Gannon hit, and I drew into another Seyfried, but I threw that one back at the bottom of the deck, because I was like, well, I just need one, because I really can't do it. But then he went into his turn, and he used Seyfried's ability to call out a lot of things, and then he ended up hitting a double crit. And I had no chance of actually making a comeback from that point on. So I ended my day 1 and 2, because we only had 3 rounds. But what I could take from it is that when I had a chance to win, I felt as if the way I was piloting the deck, I was in control of a lot of my games, especially against Oracle Think Tank. I was like, even again, well, yeah, I just felt as if I was in control. I felt as if I had my opponent, in a corner a lot of the times. But Deer was able to bail out my opponent in one game, and against my brother, those heal triggers, really kind of was able to bail him out. And against in the mirror match, I just the last 2 games I just bricked, and I bricked really hard. Like really, really hard. Like Seyfried was nowhere to be found game 2 and 3. It was like, he was holding out because, he was trying to get a new contract or something. But other than that, overall, I love the deck still. It's a very fun deck to play. I'm extremely glad I built it. If you're thinking about building it, I highly recommend that. In fact, all the decks from Destructive Roar definitely have their merits. A lot of people talk trash about Mega Colonies. Mega Colonies are not as bad as people, generally give them credit for in Standard. And, I've seen people with Mega Colony players, all it takes is that, you just lab out the deck. Just lab it out. It's kind of like a fighting game, like Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle and whatnot. You just lab out your decks, and you're definitely going to find some. It's what we've been doing with Aqua Force, with Maelstrom and whatnot. Naval Gazer is not a bad deck. I'm not shit talking Naval Gazer at all, but I definitely believe that Maelstrom definitely will probably end up as the better deck. Maybe not the most popular deck, but at the end of the day, he probably be the better. Could be the better deck. But again, I still need more. I still need to lab more with Maelstrom. Definitely need to lab more with Naval Gazer, much like everybody else does. And we'll see what happens when that drops. But again, if you're thinking about picking up a deck from Destructive Roar, pick up a deck from Destructive Roar. I highly recommend it. Tachikazes are really good. A lot of it when you don't brick. Same with Tachis, or same with Spike Brothers. Mega Connies, I don't know. It's kind of hard for them to heavily brick like that because they do that. But they also have their own limitations as well. But Mega Colonies are not bad. Tachis are really good. Spikes are fun and really good. So yeah, that's it for the tournament report, guys. I'm going to have a deck profile of Spikes up. Obviously, I'm still testing these, but I'm going to put up my deck profile of what I actually played. The build that I've been working with, and I'm probably going to talk about within the deck profile other tech cards and things like that, in which I'm going to be looking at, like, Franny versus Siggy's Walled, and things of that nature. Thinking about cutting down Gyro, maybe not, because I have a love-hate relationship with him and Spike Bouncer, but we'll see all of that in the deck profile, and I'll just go over that a little bit more. But alright, Cardfight King, Aqua Life baby, hail to the Redskins all day, every day. You already know, and we out. Peace.